We are about to abolish trial by jury in Britain. It's been encoded in the Doomsday Book, in the Magna Carta, in the 1689 Bill of Rights. We gave it via common law and Blackstone's formulation to America. And now a man who looks like Idi Amin, who thinks that Henry VII came after Henry VIII, something he said on live television, is about to abolish trial by jury. Anyway, so that should be in the next State Department report. But the State Department report of 2024 was scathing. It mentioned two-tier policing, something that the UK government had actually emailed TikTok to get to remove content that mentioned it last summer because they said it was damaging for Keir Starmer. They also asked TikTok to remove videos of fighting age males, the reference to illegal migrants crossing the channel. Jim Jordan, obviously chair of the House Judiciary Committee, complained about this, says that these editorial standards are censoring Americans, so it's of particular interest to us. But in that report, they mentioned migrant crimes like the murder of 3 girls at the dance class in Southport by Axel Rudakabana, which the government had withheld evidence on. The chief constable of Merseyside Police had actually considered, and this is according to a government report, publishing the family's Christian background to protect Muslim communities. Now, the guy himself appears to be going to mosque while in prison, but I don't actually think that was his motivation. I think he's just a schizophrenic, low IQ African who went to stab a bunch of children because he, quote, wanted white genocide, something he had told a bunch of classmates. So all of these things are going on. And so the State Department has now instructed embassies in the UK, Canada, across Europe, New Zealand, and Australia to start recording migrant crime, state-funded abortion, transgender operations on children, and other medical abuses like embryonic testing and euthanasia. All very encouraging because our governments are not doing this, trying to get data on the number of sex and violent crimes committed by immigrants, as I've already relayed, is like pulling teeth. They avoid it, they don't publish it themselves, and they only ever publish which passport they have rather than which ethnic extraction they are, so we don't get a full picture of just how many foreign criminals that we could deport tomorrow if we had the courage are in our country. And they also at the same time sent out a communique to the leaders of those respective countries saying, listen to your population, lower migration, and stop inflicting two-tier justice on them, penalizing them for having negative opinions of minorities via social media more than the foreign criminals committing the crimes in and of themselves. And that's happening pretty frequently. And it's happened under pretty much every government going back to Margaret Thatcher, by the way. So the legislation that people are getting prosecuted for, there's now 33 minimum people being arrested for social media posts or things said in public every day. That's more than Russia before they engaged in the war with Ukraine. I think it's about 12,000 prosecutions a year. These are based on legislation that was passed in 1986 under Thatcher, under Tony Blair, under the last Conservative government. This is guidance, hate crime guidance, non-crime hate incidents being recorded against members of the public because the police were called institutionally racist in 1999 by Britain's equivalent of the George Floyd case, the Stephen Lawrence murder, and so have been launching an anti-racist inquisition against members of the public's private thoughts to acquit themselves of that allegation ever since. And every government, including this one, have entrenched the legislation, exacerbated it, and now we've got thousands of people being prosecuted for it, while, yet again, the grooming gangs are still an ongoing scandal. And this is, if I may, just one comment on that previous discussion. This is why you can't have peace with such people, because the entire government censorship apparatus, the total state that you've written and spoken so eloquently about, exists to protect the feelings of these minorities based on the belief that if you just stop people noticing differences, the blank slate will be true and everyone will be equal. So it's a fundamentally egalitarian project. It's ratcheting towards us all living in John Lennon's Imagine, and instead you're getting Liberia or South Africa or Lebanon manifesting on our streets instead. And the reason why you can't ally with Muslims as the right wing is, one, they vote overwhelmingly left or increasingly for their own independent Muslim MPs in my country. But two, because the Pakistani grooming gangs has nothing to do with their opposition to Israel. In 2016, the head of the Ramadan Foundation wrote after 3 of his cousins were convicted for participating in a grooming gang in, I think it was Rotherham. He wrote that Pakistanis living in Britain know this is going on, and they bury their heads in the sand because, quote, they don't want to be seen as siding with the white enemy. So this is an explicitly racial and religious crime that has nothing to do with geopolitics. They're not here because of American and British adventurism in the Middle East. They just hate white people and they want to abuse their children. So there is no allying with them. The state actively protects them rather than the native children being abused and trafficked. read some of the transcripts that have just come out today from Open Justice. It's literally war crimes, and they should be prosecuted as such. And so the only way to get rid of this censorship artifice isn't just to change the government, isn't just to repeal the laws that put it in place, but is to denaturalize and deport every single person that these laws are protecting, starting with the Pakistani enclaves that have been abusing these children, which, I'm sorry, Tucker, you can't befriend.
Yeah, again, can't agree with that enough. So before we go to the questions of the people, I'm going to ask you something, and this, to be clear, this is not blackpilling. This is both of our countries can and will be saved. But one of the conversations that I often have back and forth with those across the pond is which country is more cooked. Like which one has further to go. When I look at the UK, I often think, man, it's almost like you guys only exist to remind me that it could be worse, right? Like whatever we're facing, it always feels like you guys are just 2 steps ahead in the dystopian thing. But at the same time, I will have people in the UK say, no, actually, just our total numbers, our percentages are better. We have a better chance once we actually have a real government of turning this over. We have a longer history that will allow us to kind of recoalesce into a people much faster than the Americans. So in your mind, which country do you think has a farther climb to get back to something that is sustainable and good for its people?
Possibly yours, because the sheer scale of the bureaucracy, the capitulation to the judiciary, and the unmanageability of your empire, all of which you've documented at length, is a much larger problem than us. Again, the demographic change, the cultural disfigurement, just the aesthetics of everything that's happened is a lot more concentrated and felt. And our population are much more awake to the problems than I think a lot of the American public are. You're still relatively split between Republicans and Dems, and the Dems are just the trans the kids open the borders party at this point. You know, Kamala Harris didn't come that far from winning, let's be fair. Still got like 70 odd million votes. So in the UK, immigration is the number one issue, and the party that is posturing as being anti-immigration is the number one party with a double the share lead over everyone else. And because of the parliamentary system, if you get a sufficiently courageous government that understands which laws to get rid of on day one, that's willing to fire the civil service, that's willing to make use of the Shamima Begum principle to denaturalize and deport pretty much every troublesome third worlder that's settled here in the last 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years even, then we can clean up this country within one parliamentary cycle. And I'm very bullish on that. I'm with Curtis Yarvin, actually, whether it's because he believes in accelerationism or whether it's because I understand the parliamentary processes that can actually fix this problem. I think Britain is closer, theoretically, to being resolved. The problem that we have is a lack of political courage and a succession crisis. So I know people are questioning whether or not JD Vance is the man. I happen to think, and from people that know Vance and are trustworthy, that he probably is the guy and he's willing to do what's right. I think just the bureaucracy is going to get in his way, as it seems to be with the Trump administration and making certain concessions. The problem in the UK we have is that we only have maybe one great MP, which is Rupert Lowe, and he currently doesn't have a party. He is currently banned from pretty much every mainstream media apparatus, despite being the most popular on social media in the country, and commanding 10 points in polls on his own without a party. So that's pretty seismic. He has no route to power. Instead, it looks like Nigel Farage is going to be the next prime minister who has no eye for detail and, as Rupert jokes, is a beech tree under which whom nothing grows. And instead, he's probably just going to retire, even possibly midway through a parliamentary term, and hand it off to Zia Yusuf. And hey, presto, we get our right-wing liberal first Muslim prime minister that nobody actually likes. He's basically our Vivek Ramaswamy, so keep a close eye on him. He's utterly insufferable. Called the police on Rupert Lowe, by the way, and had his house raided and his shotguns confiscated for speech in the middle of the night. So whether or not we have a sufficient Caesar figure or a courageous political class to take advantage of our slightly better legal and constitutional position remains to be seen. I don't think so, but we've still got possibly 4 years, and so we just need, through sheer force of will, to bring that next political class and that figure to the fore. If we don't, I don't know how long we've got left.